For the last couple of years, it has felt like we're living in a full-blown gold rush. All you hear about is artificial intelligence. This massive technological revolution that's going to cure cancer, completely transform how we work, and bring about this golden age of prosperity. And there are hundreds of billions of dollars, real money, being pumped into this, pretty much propping up our entire economy. But what if all that cash isn't actually building a new world? What if it's just building the biggest, most dangerous financial bubble in history? And what's so wild is that the number one cheerleader for this AI revolution, OpenAI's own CEO, Sam Altman, he even admits there's a hype problem. I mean, think about that. This is the guy at the absolute center of the storm, and even he's kind of waving a little red flag. And that contradiction, right there, that admission from the heart of it all, well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack. Because, on the one hand, you have these incredible, world-changing promises. But on the other hand, well, look at one of OpenAI's latest, most hyped-up products, Sora. It's a tool that makes videos from a simple text prompt. And yeah, it's a technical marvel, for sure. But in reality, it's being used for everything from weird TikTok knockoffs to really harmful deepfakes. And it costs OpenAI a fortune every single time someone hits generate. So what is going on here? Why is there such a huge gap between the promise and the product? To get to the bottom of this, here's our game plan. First, we're going to dig into the very strange case of Sora to really understand the hype. Then, we'll take a peek inside the money machine to see how all of this is actually being paid for. After that, we'll look at some really clear warning signs that this bubble is very, very real. We'll explore what happens to all of us when, not if, it pops. And finally, we'll look at the bizarre thing the architects of this whole system are doing to get ready for the future they're creating. Okay, so let's start with Sora. On the surface, it looks like this fun little novelty tool. You type some words, you get a video. It even shot to #1 on the App Store. But the second you look just a little bit closer, the whole thing just makes absolutely zero sense, not as a business, and definitely not as something that's supposed to help humanity. I mean, the list of problems here is just staggering. People have used it to make racist content, to steal copyrighted characters. It lets anyone create deepfakes that totally defile the memory of historical figures. It's basically a perfect engine for generating believable but completely fake news clips. And beyond all that societal harm, it's a financial black hole. So why even release it? The only thing it seems to do really well is generate headlines and keep that hype train rolling. And this just reveals the economic madness at the center of it all. Analysts estimate that it costs OpenAI more than $5 for every single video a user makes. Just think, its competitor TikTok gets its videos for free from its users. Sora is paying an insane amount of money for content that is, let's be honest, mostly unwatchable junk. They are just burning cash on every single user with no clear plan on how to ever make that money back. Which leads us to the real question here. If the products are losing so much money, where is all this cash coming from? How can a company like OpenAI, which is just hemorrhaging money, afford to spend hundreds of billions on things like data centers? Well, it turns out there's a very specific and kind of strange financial engine making it all happen. It's a system of what some people call circular deals or round tripping. Let me just walk you through it. It starts with Nvidia, the company making all the essential AI chips. They invest billions into an AI company, let's say OpenAI. OpenAI then turns around and uses that money to sign a massive contract with a data center company, like Oracle. And then Oracle, holding this huge new contract, goes and buys billions of dollars worth of chips, you guessed it, from Nvidia. So the money makes a complete circle. And on paper, it looks like there's this huge organic demand for AI chips, which sends the stock prices for all these companies soaring. Here is the absolute simplest way to think about it. It's an accounting trick, just on a mind-bogglingly huge scale. Nvidia is basically helping to pay for the purchase of its own products, all to create the illusion of a booming market. And it's not illegal, but it creates this incredibly fragile system that's built on inflated numbers instead of, real people actually wanting to buy a finished product. So once you understand that weird financial engine, you start to see the warning signs for a bubble, and they are everywhere. The numbers being tossed around are just so massive. They defy all logic for companies that haven't even figured out how to make a consistent profit yet. Okay, let's just start with this number. In 2025 alone, OpenAI is on the hook to spend an estimated $1.3 trillion. Just to put that into perspective, the entire U.S. defense budget for 2024 was less than that. And this is a company that's projected to lose $8.5 billion this year. They're writing checks bigger than most countries. And here's where it really disconnects. For all that spending, this AI revolution isn't actually revolutionizing much of anything in the workplace yet. A major report from MIT found that 95% of corporate attempts to actually use generative AI have failed to turn a profit. Companies are trying it out, sure, but it's not delivering on those promises of productivity. The real-world value just isn't there yet. And that brings us to the absolutely terrifying scale of all this. Analysts who track this stuff estimate that the potential AI bubble isn't just bigger than the dot-com bubble from the 90s, it's 17 times bigger. It's 4 times bigger than the 2008 housing crisis that nearly destroyed the global economy. We are in completely uncharted territory here. So, what does all this mean for the rest of us? Because a bubble this massive isn't just some abstract problem for a few venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. When this thing bursts, it's not going to stay contained. The shockwaves are going to be felt by everyone, because our whole economy has become completely tangled up in this one single bet. Just look at the S&P 500, the stock index that's supposed to be a nice, diverse snapshot of the American economy. Well, right now, just 7 tech companies, all of them deeply invested in AI, make up over a third of its entire value. The financial health of almost 500 other companies is being completely overshadowed by this tiny AI-obsessed group. Our stock market isn't diversified anymore. It's concentrated on a single point of failure. And that risk connects directly to you. Over 60% of Americans own stocks, whether it's through a 401k, a pension plan, or a college savings fund. Your retirement, your future, it's all tied to how these 7 companies perform. If this bubble pops, it's not just tech billionaires who lose money. It's the life savings of millions of ordinary people that could just vanish. And that could easily trigger a massive recession. So, if the risks are this big and the whole system is this fragile, what are the people at the very top doing? The ones actually building this future, the ones who see all the data? Well, what they're doing might be the most telling warning sign of all. To put it as simply as possible, they're getting ready for a collapse. While they are out there publicly selling this vision of an AI utopia, they are privately buying what some people call apocalypse insurance. And the examples are very specific and, frankly, pretty unsettling. Mark Zuckerberg is building this enormous compound in Hawaii, complete with a giant underground shelter. Sam Altman reportedly has a deal with investor Peter Thiel to be flown to New Zealand if things go south. And the co-founder of LinkedIn says that about half of the billionaires he knows in Silicon Valley have gotten themselves some kind of secret hideaway. Author Douglas Rushkoff, who has actually talked to some of these people, puts it this way. They see a collapse as inevitable. They feel like they can't change the path of this digital future they've created. So their solution isn't to try and fix the system. It's to build an escape hatch for themselves, to shield themselves from the consequences of their own creations. So when you cut through all these sci-fi promises and you just look at the evidence, the nonsensical products, the circular money, the staggering financial risks, and the billionaires building bunkers, you're left with a really important question. Maybe we've been asking the wrong question this whole time. Maybe we should stop asking, when will superhuman AI get here? The better question, the one that really matters right now, is, what are they actually building? Because from where I'm standing, it looks a lot less like a technological revolution and a lot more like the most elaborate and dangerous financial gamble in human history.